咱用保羅做一個解釋。
And let us use Paul as an example.
保羅先主到離開世界只無30華年嘅時間。
Paul, from the time he came to know the Lord up until the time that he passed away, it was like a span of about 30 years
但
or
係保
so.
羅嘅生命是非常嘅成熟。
But Paul's life was very mature.
第30年裏面，
Within 30 years,
即係保羅學驗對東方傳教西方嘅娛樂嘅所在。
through the work of Paul, the gospel was preached from the east to the west to Europe.
這個是無可能嘅大事。
Now, this was something that was impossible.
所以保羅這時代是叫做前無古人，無人前做伊很厲
So
害。
Paul's achievement can be said to be unprecedented.
但係你知一步，
But do you know what?
保羅所面對嘅壓力也是前無古人啊！
But Paul's pressures, the pressures that Paul experienced, were also unprecedented.
你看哥林多後書2章11章23到28節，
Take a look at 2 Corinthians 11:23 to 28.
保羅家己講家己壓力有偌濟。
Paul talked about how much pressures he experienced.
你講伊是基督嘅僕人嘛？我講一個狂話嘅話，我覺得是。我比伊真罪羅哥，特擺這家具，小鞭拍是街頭嘅，巫師是特擺有嘅。
Are they servants of Christ? Now I am out of my mind to talk like this. I am more. I have worked much harder, been in prison more frequently, been flogged more severely, and been exposed to death again and again.
嗱，你看咪？好猶太人拍5擺，每一擺40個減一個，好棍拍3擺，好鑿頭拍1擺，拄着準拍3擺，一日一暗地深海嘅裡面。
5 times I received from the Jews the 40 lashes minus 1. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. I spent a night and a day in the open sea.
特擺行行路嘅危險，對到江河嘅危險，盜賊嘅危險，動作嘅危險，挖板嘅危險，城內嘅危險，曠野嘅危險，海上嘅危險，揀兄弟嘅危險。
I have been constantly on the move. I have been in danger from rivers, in danger from bandits, in danger from my own countrymen, in danger from Gentiles, in danger in the city, in danger in the country, in danger at sea, and in danger from false brothers.
受勞碌，受困苦，特擺無通困，個腰個吹打，特擺無通食，受寒冷，赤身裸體，除了這款嘅代志，真教會嘅代志，擺喺我嘅心內，逐日壓喺我嘅心上。
I have labored and toiled and have often gone without sleep. I have known hunger and thirst and have often gone without food. I have been cold and naked. Besides everything else, I face daily the pressure of my concern for all the churches.
這個你是保羅，
And if you were Paul,
我是保羅，
if I were Paul,
我相信你已經自殺幾禮拜啦。
I believe that we would have committed suicide many times over.
保羅面對嘅重大壓力，受幾罪。
The pressure, the burden that Paul experienced was too much.
但係呢個 pressure，呢個壓力，好保羅嘅生命更加係成熟。
But this kind of pressures allowed Paul's life to become more mature.
就係所謂創辦人 Watchman Nee 講一句話，
Watchman Nee
佢
said,
講保羅用32章學驗對東方傳教娛樂亞視瓜需要300年。
and he said that Paul spent 30 years in spreading the gospel from the east to the west to Europe. But if it were I, then it would probably have taken 300 years.
嗱，亞托聖需要300年，我及你可能需要3000年。
And if Watchman Nee needed 300 years, then you and me, perhaps we would require 3,000 years.
係啦，即係咱嚟成熟，咱嚟 mature。
Brothers and sisters, we want to mature.
離開了壓力，咱真更加成熟。
But apart from pressures, it is going to be very difficult for us to mature.
我唔知你現在面對什麼嘅壓力，
Now, I don't know what sort of pressures you may be
可能
facing
是
right
可能
now.
是經濟壓力，
Perhaps it may be financial pressures.
可能是感情壓力，
Perhaps it is like emotional
可能是
pressures.
連鎖壓力，
Or perhaps it is relational
可能是
pressures.
善果壓力。
Perhaps it may be physical
但
pressure.
你記得，
But you must
這款
remember,
嘅壓力係變成款嘅力量，係幫助你確實嘅堅嘅成熟起嚟。
this kind of pressures can become a kind of a power or strength to propel you to greater and faster
因
growth.
為危機常常是人生嘅轉機。
Because crisis very often becomes the turning point in life.
這個世界正最偉大嘅事業，都是危機中間產生出嚟嘅物件。
A lot of great businesses in this world came out of great pressures.
這個是對危機中間產生嘅產品。
Denim jeans came about as a result of a crisis.
咱哋車所用嘅 tissue paper 是危機中間產生嘅產品。
Tissue paper came about as a result of a crisis.
我哋就係什麼 tissue paper 走落嚟？
Let me tell you how tissue paper came
啲
about.
差唔多100年前，
About 100 years ago,
美國有一個叫做 Scott Paper 嘅公司，
there was this company, Scott Paper, in the
佢
U.S.
成日攞真濟頂出抓到嚟，
And they had ordered like truckloads of papers.
唔知是管理嘅問題，還是什麼大事發生了，當中嘅抓派去。
And there was some sort of a problem with admin or manufacturing process. All the papers were ruined.
當伊抓來嘅時陣，
When the papers arrived,
裏面有淡薄淡淡，
it was a little bit damp.
嗰有數有淡薄坑，小一坑喺隻抓
And
裏
they
面，
also noticed some small holes
當
in
中
the
無通
paper.
影，無通寫物件。
And they couldn't use this for anything, not for writing.
安尼做何創呢？
So what do they do?
損失受嘅大，
The loss would be too great.
伊舉一個 emergency meeting，
And they called for an emergency
無
meeting.
上我嘅意見。
And they all gave different opinions.
我賣出機啦，屬賣出機啦
Some of them said that let's sell them at a loss.
當時 CEO Arthur Scott 講一句話
And the CEO at the time, Arthur Scott, said,
唔當賣出機，
let us not sell them.
咱嚟想辦法。
Let's think of a
伊
solution.
做辦法咧，
What was his solution?
伊用咗我哋這個做嚟切得一塊碎塊，
Slice all this or cut these papers into small
每一
pieces.
塊中間創一個碎嘅坑，連起來。
In between these papers, he made some perforations.
將咗嚟做生機學堂、生機旅社、生機 bus station，
And he sent all these papers to schools, to hotels, and train or bus stations.
放喺廁所嘅裏面，
Put them in the toilets
好人就嚟切手。
so that people can use them to wipe their
伊
hands.
話這個做叫做酸利嘅衛生巾，
And they call this the sunny towels.
小妹夠真受歡迎。
And what was so unexpected that it was warmly accepted.
個 order，
And they continued ordering from them.
結果無了這個攤大條
And
錢。
as a result, not only did they not lose money, but they earned a lot of money.
危機常常是人生轉機嘅時陣。
Now, crisis is very often a turning point in one's life.
當你面對壓力嘅時陣，
When you face pressures,
可能是你嘅生命一個 turning point 嘅時陣。
perhaps it could be a turning point in your life.
你若走就無咯，
And if you flee, you may not
你若
experience it.
面對可能大事發生咯。
But if you face it, then things can happen.
第三，
Third,
壓力幫助一個人成功，
pressure can help a person succeed.
唔啦長大，唔啦成熟個成功。
Not only for a person to grow up, not only for him to mature, but to help him to succeed.
當然第一，世界人嘅成功及上帝眼中嘅成功，常常是無相。
Of course, we know that the world's definition of success is very different from God's definition of success.
人嘅成功無離佢有錢有名有權，
Man's definition of success evolves around money, fame, and power.
但係上帝嘅成功可能無錢無名無權，
But God's success, perhaps you may not have any money, fame, or power.
好上帝所紀念是成功嘅人。
But person that God remembers is a successful person.
咱嚟講三個人，
Let us take a look at three
呢
persons.
三人係壓力中間成功嘅人。
And these three persons are persons who succeeded amidst the pressures of
中
life.
世紀嘅 Joseph，
Joseph in the book of
呢
Genesis.
個人一生分咗4個階段。
And the life of this person can be divided into 4 stages.
好人出賣，好人冤枉，好人危機，好人提升。
When he was betrayed or sold, and then he was falsely accused, he was forgotten, and then after that he was exalted.
頭3階段真最壓力。
In the first 3 stages, he had a lot of pressures.
亞兄出賣，危機埃及追落
When he
嚟。
was betrayed and sold by his brothers into the land of Egypt.
約瑟是家庭裏面第11個囡仔，
Joseph was the 11th in among the siblings.
老爸特別聽伊，
And the father especially loved him.
結果亞兄彎道伊，
And as a result, his other brothers were jealous of
唔
him.
那是彎道伊。
Not only were they jealous of him,
做一個 dream，
Joseph had a dream.
及你講將來我俾就係浪中嘅頭，
Joseph told his brothers that I'm going to become head of everyone.
結果亞兄嗰個笑氣伊，
And that is why his brothers became even angrier at
即
him.
係講冇及伊講好話。
And the Bible tells us that his brothers never spoke a good word to him.